The room was silent except for the faint beeping of monitors, each one marking a second closer to the end. Blood stained the crisp white sheets, dark and ominous, seeping into the sterile hospital air. Outside the window, the afternoon sun cast an indifferent glow over the city of San Diego, where the waves of the Pacific crashed silently against the shore, unaware of the battle raging inside a single hospital room. A man, barely clinging to life, lay on the bed, a SEAL sniper named Jonah Hawk Mercer, his body battered by shrapnel, bullets, and the merciless hand of fate. He had already turned away 20 doctors, each confident in their skills yet unable to break through the wall of silence and stubborn pain that encased him. Jonah was more than a soldier. He was a legend in the special operations community. But here, stripped of his uniform, his medals, and his pride, he was just a man on the brink of death. His jaw was clenched tight, his piercing blue eyes staring at the ceiling as though willing it to crack open and swallow him whole. The medical team had tried everything, cutting-edge procedures, experimental drugs, anything that could keep him alive. Every attempt met with the same quiet refusal. He rejected them all, not out of defiance but out of fear. Fear that if he survived, he would never be the man he once was. Fear that he would live with the memory of the battlefield and the weight of lives lost under his command. Into this tension stepped a rookie nurse named Hannah Caldwell. She was 24, fresh out of nursing school, and overwhelmed by the high-stakes intensity of a military trauma unit. Her hands trembled slightly as she entered Jonah's room, clipboard in hand, trying to mask her nerves with professionalism. She had heard whispers of the untouchable SEAL from colleagues, how he had dismissed every doctor with a look, how he refused any intervention. Many warned her that she would be powerless, that he would never respond to someone like her, but Hannah carried with her a quiet strength, a faith that sometimes courage came not from experience but from a heart willing to speak truth. The first time she approached him, Jonah's eyes barely flickered. He lay there, his breathing shallow, as if every inhale could shatter him. Hannah knelt by his side and spoke softly, her voice steady but gentle, introducing herself not just as a nurse, but as someone who saw him as more than his injuries. She shared stories of her own struggles, small moments of doubt, fear, and failure, and yet how she had been lifted by unexpected kindness and care. Jonah didn't respond. Days passed. She returned each shift, never forcing herself into his world, but always present, always observing, always patient. The hospital room became a silent battlefield. Nurses rushed, doctors barked orders, machines beeped frantically, and outside, life went on as if oblivious. But Hannah noticed the small signs others overlooked. The tightening of his fists when someone mentioned surgery, the quick flicker of his eyes at certain names, the barely perceptible tension in his shoulders. She realized Jonah was clinging not just to life but to control, to identity, to the fragments of the man he believed himself to be before war reshaped his soul. One evening, exhausted and weary, Hannah stayed late. The room was dim, lit only by the soft glow of the monitors. She carefully adjusted his and spoke softly, recounting memories from the SEAL missions she had researched, stories of camaraderie, bravery, and honor. She remembered seeing his call sign in a file and whispered it, Hawk. The name fell from her lips like a prayer, not just acknowledging the soldier, but the man behind the legend. Jonah's eyes snapped open. There was recognition, sharp and instant, like lightning cutting through a stormy sky. For the first time, he looked at Hannah not as a nurse, not as a stranger, but as someone who understood, even just a little, the world he had left behind. His chest rose and fell unevenly, his fingers twitched, and then he spoke. Not words, but a sound, a fragile, guttural acknowledgement of her presence. It was the first step, the first breach in the walls he had built so high. Hannah felt tears prick at her eyes but held herself steady, whispering encouragement and reassurance. She didn't push, didn't command, didn't lecture. She simply reminded him who he was, Hawk, a SEAL, a protector, a fighter, and that it was okay to accept help, to accept care, to survive. Slowly, tentatively, Jonah allowed her to touch him, to examine him, to be near. It was a monumental shift. The battle was no longer just physical, but emotional, spiritual, and psychological. Days turned into nights. Jonah's progress was painstakingly slow, but Hannah's persistent presence, gentle words, and unwavering faith became a lifeline. He began to respond to treatments, to engage in therapy, and even to crack small, fleeting smiles. Other staff members watched in awe as the once impenetrable seal opened up, revealing glimpses of the man he had been and the man he could still become. Jonah's recovery wasn't just about mending broken bones or healing flesh. It was about restoring hope, trust, and the courage to continue living. Throughout this journey, Hannah never sought recognition. She didn't need accolades or medals. What she had given was simple yet profound: patience, understanding, and the courage to speak the right words at the right time. Jonah's transformation was a testament to the power of human connection, the quiet heroism of someone willing to believe in another when the world had given up. One afternoon, after weeks of care, Jonah sat upright in his hospital bed, steady and alert for the first time. He looked at Hannah, a shadow of a smile on his lips, and finally whispered, "Thank you for seeing me." It was more than gratitude. It was acknowledgement, redemption, and healing compressed into a single moment. Hannah smiled, tears slipping down her cheeks, knowing that the battle had been won, not with knives, guns, or medicine, but with compassion, patience, and faith. As Jonah left the hospital weeks later, he carried more than bandages and medical charts. He carried renewed purpose, hope, and a story that would inspire countless others. Hannah returned to her duties, quietly proud, knowing that sometimes the smallest voices, when spoken with heart, can reach even the most fortified souls. If this story has touched your heart, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. Every act of kindness and encouragement spreads hope, just like Hannah's did for Jonah. Before you leave, I'd love for you to comment and share your own story of someone who made a difference in your life. You never know who might read it and find hope. Jonah's journey reminds us that even in our darkest hours, there is always a chance for connection, healing, and second chances. No matter how far gone someone may seem, the right words, the right presence, and the right touch at the right moment can transform despair into hope. Life, much like Jonah's recovery, is fragile yet resilient. And sometimes, the bravest thing we can do is to let someone help us carry the weight. So next time you feel helpless or someone you know is struggling, remember Hannah and Jonah. Remember that courage isn't just in the battlefield, but in showing up, believing, and never giving up on another human soul. Because in that act, miracles happen and lives are saved, not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually, and forever. If this story moved you, please engage with the video by liking, sharing, and commenting. Let your heart speak, and let others know that hope, compassion, and courage still exist in the world.